reflections on the past year, thoughts on the year ahead, and try to do this in a way that's fairly brief, but hits the really important highlights. So, I want to start by, I guess, delivering the hardest news, which is, it looks right now that we're unfortunately not going to be able to meet our budget projection of 600 enrolled next year. And despite some incredibly hard work on the part of our admissions staff and many of you to try to strengthen retention and to attract more students, it just doesn't look like we're going to get there next year. Why? It's probably the most important question. Well, it looks like right now the enrolling new students we're on a pace to surpass last year, so that's probably going to end up pretty good. But retention isn't as strong as we would like. And the areas that we seem to be taking the biggest hit next year are grades 3, 4, 5, 9, and 10. Now, there's no simple reason for this. We've looked long and hard at it. We're going to look even harder at the reasons for specific families leaving during the summer. But there's no easy thing to pinpoint. If there was, we could fix it quickly. But it, quite frankly, it has to do with the price of the school. It has to do with, to some extent, with the experience our students are having. It has certainly some extent to do with the competition out there and what they may be doing. And it also has to do with other factors that folks moving out of the area or changing lifestyles. So, but it is what it is, and the reality is that we're going to be roughly 20 students under where we had hoped we would be next year. The impact of that is roughly $250,000 of income that we have to figure out how to compensate for without impacting the quality of the academic program that we offer students. And so when we look at that, we look for different cuts to make in different areas of the school. And one of the areas that unfortunately that we have to look at when you're looking at that kind of reduction is staffing. And you need to know that, first of all, the board does not make staffing decisions. The board approves the budget, it approves tuition increase, it approves salaries. But it does not tell me how to staff the school. That's my decision. So when I look at how we can compensate for the loss of that kind of revenue, what I do is go to my division heads, leadership team, which we did way back in the fall, and said, if we are at this point where we have an enrollment of 580, where can we reduce staff? Although we don't want to, where can we do it, have the least impact on academic program, but make those changes? And every member of the leadership team was required to give me their advice because they know their divisions better than I do. It's my job to look at their suggestions and view the whole picture, view what each suggested savings would amount to for the school, and ultimately I make a decision. And you need to know that every division of the school has been impacted by the reductions that we're making for next year. It's not something that I enjoy doing. It's the quite frankly, it's the worst part of the job, my job. You know, it's even worse than asking kids to leave. That's always traumatic and painful. Asking faculty, colleagues to leave is even more difficult. But the reality is we're in a position where we felt we had to do it. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I feel the steps that we have taken won't impact academic program. In fact, because of the creativity of division heads and their ideas, we're going to, I think, actually end up next year offering a stronger academic program than what we offered this year. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. One of the essential ingredients to moving the school forward, that's the key. We have to move the school forward. And now I'm going to talk about how I think we're going to accomplish that. Because the bottom line, as you all know, is sort of the product that we produce, the students who attend school here, and what they learn is strong. And it's unparalleled in this community, as good as any school in North Carolina. So obviously we need to get that word out, and we need to continue to make sure that happens. Now, so one of the things that we need to make sure we do is pay close attention to the mission. And you can see our revised mission on the board, along with the values, which are our character, our integrity, respect, resilience, and accountability. This is our reason, our mission, it's our reason for existence. It's what ultimately we're striving for with everything we do here. Discovering and developing individual potential, preparing students for success, college, and life. The more we can commit ourselves to that, everyone commit ourselves to that, the more we eat, live, breathe, sleep this mission, the better we will be. The values are essential because it tells us how we go about doing this, how we conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis. So achieving the mission without the core values is actually detrimental to the school. It's like saying winning at all costs. Winning at all costs isn't worth it. Because it's the values that we instill in our students along the way that are going to have just as lasting impact as their passions and individual potential. The strategic plan that we are, hopefully the board will approve that in its entirety next week. You'll get a chance to see it shortly thereafter. Many of you have been involved with this already. Right now we have many, I think it's 77 initiatives that we want to accomplish in order to achieve our strategic plan. It's a lot, but remember we have 5 years to do it. So the key is to pace ourselves as we go about achieving this plan. But the key again is all of us, to use the rowboat metaphor, rowing in the same direction at the same time in unison. We all have to share and own this. The better we do that, the better the school, better off the school is, and the more successful we'll be. Okay. Part of the mission, well, part of our strategic plan this year was predicated on something that many of you said to me at various times during the year, which is knowing who we are and knowing the kinds of students we feel we can best educate. And that's critical because we can't educate everyone. And if we try to do that, it's not going to work. We're going to become greater fragmented. So with your input, and the leadership team drafted a statement about the types of students that we want to serve. And I don't think all of you have seen that, but you need to. So let's see if I can. Can you see that, or should I enlarge it? Okay. I want, at your own, I'm going to go through this because I think this is extremely important. And so just bear with me as I read it, because it's recognizing that our mission, is to discover and develop individual potential, etc. That Cape Fear Academy is an independent school with limited resources, and that Cape Fear Academy's success is predicated on excelling in meeting the educational needs of mission-appropriate students, which is defined as students. Okay, so we want to be clear about who we can best serve. These are students who have achieved in the 65th percentile or better on the national norms of our entrance exam. Demonstrated strong academic achievement at their previous school, indicated by an academic average of B or higher. No single grade lower than a C in a completed semester or full year course. Demonstrated outstanding behavior and citizenship as indicated by teacher recommendations. Scores of excellent and outstanding. Scores of excellent and outstanding, and by never having served an in-school or out-of-school suspension. Excellent and outstanding has to do on the
Teacher rec form.
Teacher rec form, that should be clear in there. Okay. Or for students applying to Little Explorers through grade 1 who don't have the same criteria because they don't have grades and standardized testing that's similar, achieve developmentally appropriate, age-appropriate scores on our entrance assessment and demonstrate age-appropriate school readiness behaviors during the assessment and during a classroom visit. Okay, those are our mission-appropriate students. Now, the world's not perfect. There are always gray areas. We try to identify that in the following.
Can you page down now?
Oh yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay, so.
That's good news.
Okay, and the daughter is mission appropriate, the dog isn't. So, Cape Fear Academy believes it can successfully accommodate students who may fall outside any or all of the above characteristics of a mission appropriate student under the following guidelines. So students with mild to slightly more pronounced learning disabilities whose accommodations meet those laid out in our acceptable accommodations program. So we have a program. We have identified what accommodations we can make. Students whose entrance exam tests scores fall below the 65th percentile national norms, but have performed at or above the 65th percentile national norm on math and reading comprehension standardized tests taken within the last 3 years. So this says, okay, you may not have done this exactly on our entrance exam, but on a somewhat similar test, nationally normed, have you demonstrated this level? Third, students whose entrance exam test scores fall below the 65th percentile norm, but have strong family support that includes providing nightly structure and assistance for homework, a willingness to communicate frequently and openly with teachers, a willingness to schedule the student for tutorial assistance at the school's recommendation, and this may include paying for CFA skills program or external tutors. And last, no more than 15% of the students in any grade will fall outside the characteristics of a mission-appropriate student. So this sort of exception rule, no more than 15% at a grade level is what we can commit to. And we think we can work with those students in limited numbers, given they meet the other requirements, as a result of the small numbers of classes and the small size of our school. We don't think we're here yet with 15%. We don't think we're here yet with these statistics, but from this year's admissions, we are using this as our standard going forward. One thing I will say about retention, some of our students who are not returning are students who weren't mission appropriate. Okay, division directors have indicated that. And while I regret seeing some of these students leave, and it's going to hurt us in the numbers, and a lot of them are really sweet kids, still, we're not in the right school, and we're not in the right school if we want to be more unified about who we admit and able to be more successful as a whole school. Hard lessons. And as I said earlier, we're not going to admit kids just to fill the school. Okay? And that's one of the reasons, so with that, what I've just said, combined with making tougher admissions decisions, that is part of the reason we're not going to do 600. Short-term pain, but in the long term, this will help us. Okay, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions about this. Yeah.
The exceptions, do they have to fulfill all of these requirements, all the bullet points, or just one or a few?
They have to, all of them.
You mean at the top, Toby?
Yeah, no, at the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah. They have to be all of those.
Yeah. The first, not necessarily. The first one, not necessarily. In other words, if you have one exam below the 65th percentile, you can have, you have to have all the others, but you don't have to have every test above the 65th percentile. if you have the other three requirements. Does that make sense?
So is this what we would use if we were thinking of housing a family out of Cape Fear? Would we use this document, these criteria?
I'd be hesitant to do that for kids we've already accepted, to roll this out. The kids who are already here, you have to look at, the accommodations we're making, how they're doing. You can't go back to this and say, now you're not mission appropriate because of this document. There are other ways we can do it. Yeah.
The acceptable accommodations program, is that as we have been using, or is that changed?
That's what's been laid out right now.
Can you expand on what changes are involved in that, if there are?
There are no plans to change what we're currently doing yet. We may review that in the future, but right now we're still operating with the same plan.
That plan, just to make sure everybody knows, is in the handbook. Everybody's faculty handbook, it's in the 60-some pages, is a 2 to 3 page acceptable accommodations program. It's there for you to read and review if you've forgotten.
Yeah.
Is this kind of indigenous just to Cape Fear Academy, or is this something that other schools have done that we're kind of following in the model to see have they been able to increase enrollment, have they been able to bridge that gap, or is this something that we sort of created?
I would say a generic answer to that. Schools that are really strong really know who they can best serve and lay it out for everyone to see. Now, different schools decide what that level is depending on their resources, the size of the school. For example, Forsyth Country Day has a significant learning skills program as part of their fabric of their school. So the range of students they take will be far wider than the range of students we take. They have 3 LD tutors on staff on a regular basis. They have a formal program, so that's a much wider range. Durham Academy's range is much smaller than this. They're higher demand, they decided to narrow their academic focus. But this is where we felt we could be most successful in our market. Other questions?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
About, I know it's highly academic and data focused, but sometimes there's social emotional characteristics of the student that can affect their performance in school that isn't going to be shared in test scores. Is there any way to incorporate anything like that into this?
That's interesting. I think we felt that social emotional will show up in the recommendation.
I can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'd be glad to share with anyone who'd like to see the teacher recommendation form that an applicant, that teachers fill out. It's typically minimally a math and an English teacher for each child. And it asks about the child, both as a student and as a person. It has a lot of different descriptors for them to choose from. So I'd be happy to share that. You can look at it on the website. It touches on it, Toby. I'm not so sure it's thoroughly answers your concern, but somewhat.
Yeah, that's interesting because if you're looking at kids who, like with autism or Asperger's, who really have a hard time, this doesn't really get into that. There aren't many of those kids, but that is an issue, a concern. Yeah.
As the teacher, are we able to share those types of things in the recommendation? That's a medical document.
No, it's usually
Confidential.
You can share it, but not with clinical terms.
Okay.
You share it in what you observe in their behavior.
Okay.
That is out of the ordinary or difficult.
No.
Yeah.
With that being said, when you talk about admitting Ellie and Kay, then what happens down the road when these kids, personality traits come out? And I think this is kind of what they've been going. How do you approach that?
Yeah, that is a great question. It's so difficult because different kinds of social, emotional, and learning issues present themselves as students develop. And that is we just have to do the best job as they present themselves, deciding, can we accommodate those students, given the accommodations we make, given the amount of time that we devote to folks here. And at some point it goes outside that range that we can work with, and we have to make those tough decisions. parents.
And who makes this, I mean, where does that go? The faculty, I've had.
Ultimately, it's the faculty and the division director, and they've made it this year, the lower school, in really some tough ways. But the other side, we want to work. The other thing is, we want to do what's right for kids. And sometimes helping a child move at least to the exit grade of a division is the kind and compassionate way to do this and tenable. Other times it's not. And that's a judgment call. One other thought about that. Having said that, it's not helpful to not give students and parents realistic assessments via grades and reports. Okay? And I firmly believe in that with everyone. When we give people feedback, we want to do it compassionately but realistically. And that's true for kids, it's true for adults. And so for some kids, it's saying, your work right now is at the C or D level. And this is why. And this is what we can try to do to help you improve, but this is where you are. And that's often the best way to help start the process of finding a more appropriate school for kids. It's hard. It's definitely hard. And, yeah.
One thing I just want to add on Toby's question, one of the ways when a teacher and a teacher rep has hinted that we have a struggling child or some concerns, Alice and I are both teachers first, so when we sense that and what a teacher's saying or a child's behavior or a parent, many of the teachers who are currently in the room have been kind enough to assist us when we ask them to come to your room and visit for the day or for 2 hours, and then we say, so, how'd it go? What do you think? And those emails we send that says we welcome any feedback, that's when we can detect a lot of times when a teacher says, this child could not participate, that we need you. So when we are telling you we really want your feedback, we are being sincere that a day in your classroom as a visiting applicant, your feedback's really important. 4th grade teachers know 4th graders the most. LE teachers know LE teachers the most. We need that feedback from you. So that's another way we do detect in an applicant some of those behaviors also.
All right. Other questions? Okay. So, new revised mission, values, trying to better identify who we are, mission appropriate students. And leads me to the next item, which is change. So, we have a new head of school, there are definitely changes, new strategic plan. Change is difficult. Change is difficult because it's anxiety. Let's say it produces anxiety. It's the unknown, or slightly or partially unknown, and I get it. It's hard on all of us. To the extent that I want to show you this, and while it's hard on all of us, it's also the way forward, I believe, to strengthening the school. And to give you a sense, though, of how this is happening, I've listed what I thought were some of the new changes either that we've started to put in place now or are coming next year. And there's a lot. But this is putting us, I firmly believe, on the right path. And I'm stealing Chris Neal's thunder on the top 10. The new athletic conference. Chris, do you want to say something about this?
This June, we proposed an athletic conference that would do our travel in half. No trip to O'Neill and no trip to Village Christian. So we would have 2 less trips. That has to be approved by the board of managers this summer in June. But our new conference would be Coastal Christian, Cape Fear Academy, Harrell's, Fayetteville Academy, Fayetteville Christian, and Perry Academy. But we lose 2 major road trips in a year, this would be for 2014, 2015. Would be really good for our upper school students and some middle school.
Yeah, Chris has worked really hard on this during the year. It's been difficult. We're keeping our fingers crossed that the board of managers will approve this in the summer. Thank you very much, Chris. look through these other 10. I'm not going to talk about each of them. If you have questions, absolutely ask. I'm gonna go to- Oh, okay. Very sorry. Okay. Is that better? A little bigger? All right. Chris Mail, can you read this in the back?
Yes, sir.
What's line 3?
A, B, F.
All right. Let's go to, yeah, comment? Yeah. Barb?
Summer programs, just a commercial, who lines is here in the office. We still have, openings for some of the camps, and yesterday, Sam Atwood, student intern to Miss Mary Lyons Mitchell, is, put up a new Facebook page. Please find it and like it and share it. The
It's
more-
under construction, but he's got some awesome ideas and great pictures, so.
Right. And we will be adding updates to that, but if you'll look for it, CFA Summer Programs is the Facebook name. To find it, and I'll send you the link.
And we have already surpassed our total revenue from last year. How far beyond last year's revenue, we're not sure where we'll end up, but we're really in a good place.
Don't forget to sign up.
Okay. Another commercial.
Another commercial holiday market, November 14th through 16th, being housed in our gym, a fundraiser for the school. Please, if you see vendors that would be appropriate when you are at crafts fairs and things, Carla and some of the advancement team have been doing this for us for months. But if you see somebody you think we should invite to be one of our vendors, send me an email. And if you know of anybody, encourage them to be in contact with us about renting a booth for that.
Information is on our website.
Information is on our website. Yes, in fact, you haven't even seen, we're going to launch the page this week. It'll be a separate page for the holiday market the next few days.
So one point about this is that some of the changes occur, again, they're occurring in every area of the school, not just with students, but with development and advancement and summer programs. And the last thing on there that is sort of interesting, this is part of our new marketing efforts. There'll be a new school logo. And currently our logo is the circle. Well, there's two logos, right? It's right. So we have the athletic logo, which is the hurricane. And we also have our logo, which is the seal. And we have a marketing sort of logo committee that's been working on this to try to sort of keep some of the same values that are in that logo, the tradition, the notion of excellence, but sort of modernize that and make it more attractive, more powerful, and a better symbol of moving forward and a more innovative look. So that should be coming out. The board will need to sign off on that next week, and then we'll have that as well to as something new next year. So, all right. So on the whole, quite frankly, to summarize all this, I'm deeply sort of disappointed that enrollment isn't going to be better. As the head of school, I certainly take full responsibility for where we are with enrollment. On the other hand, we all need to remember that the changes that we're putting in place are going to take a little bit of time to have input and full power internally and externally. But I do think that they are putting us in the right direction, absolutely.